Business Unwrapped. Today, I've got the great pleasure of introducing Tim Randall of Links Magazines in sunny Tavistock. Hello, Tim. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much, Mark. And thank you very much for inviting me to take part in your, I think we call it a podcast. Are we calling it a podcast?
I think we'll call it a podcast. I think it's really like a question and answer session, and let's see a little bit more. Let's find out a bit more about Links Magazines, Tim. Tell me all about yourself.
Well, Links Magazines have been in existence since 2011. And since then, we've grown in terms of the number of magazines we have and the number of magazines we distribute. And yeah, I mean, I'll hold them up for you. So these are our gaggle of magazines. They're B5 in size. This is Oaky Links. They're B5 and they're very much community magazines. So we publish what we would describe as micro community magazines. So they serve a very defined geographical area, and each magazine is tailored to that area. We also publish digital material as well. So we have websites, we design websites, but our core business is still print, and we love print. We love manufacturing something and smelling it and opening the boxes and seeing the finished result. We love doing that. And that's primarily because of my background, which is for 40 years has been in newspapers and magazines.
How many people actually are getting these magazines then on a bi-monthly basis, isn't it? So it's a copy every.
Well, yes. So if I give you a bit more detail then. So each magazine, as I say, is B5 in size. It's full color glossy. But each magazine has a minimum of 60% content. So what we mean by that is 60% editorial. So no more than 40% of the magazine is advertising. And this means that we can write wonderful stories, health, history, local people, gardening, etc. So that, as I say, if this comes through your letterbox in your area, then it will be absolutely relevant to where you live. It'll be about people who live near you. It'll be health sections written by a doctor in your local GP practice. The farming diary will be written by a local farmer just up the road farming. So it's all very local, very relevant stuff. And it also contains an awful lot of what's on material as well. We regularly have pages and pages and pages of what's on. You touched upon it, they're bi-monthly. So we come out every 8 weeks. So Tavy Links, for example, which covers the Tavistock area of Devon, comes out 6 times a year. So we produce that magazine, and we love doing it. But the model is slightly different from other people insofar as coming from a newspaper background myself and a magazine background. My personal belief is the paid-for model is a little bit old-fashioned now. It's dying in some respects. So people don't go out and buy a newspaper or go out and buy a magazine as much as they used to, unless it's a real niche interest thing. So our model is that if you live in Tavistock, which the postcode is PL19, if you live in Tavistock, we deliver that to every house and business in PL19, which is an expensive model because it means we print a lot of copies and we distribute a lot of copies. In this instance, it's 9,000 copies. So we deliver to through every letterbox. In this instance, by the Royal Mail. So we have a Royal Mail contract to deliver this with your morning mail. And as I say, you wouldn't get this anywhere else. You just get it in PL19. And therefore, it's very easy for us to make sure all the content is relevant to anybody who lives in PL19. Conversely, this magazine, which is Mornings, goes to PL20. Or, for example, this magazine, Plym Links Central, goes to a highly specified targeted area of Plymouth that we deem as being called Central. So Plym Links Central goes to a central belt in Plymouth. And that's how we do it. So we publish magazines, but we deliver them direct into people's homes. And the actual answer to your question was that we print about 52,000 copies now. And the readership is in the regions of about 147,000 potential readers of the magazine.
That's absolutely brilliant. And that alone must make you really stand out amongst the freebies that come through our letterbox every day or every month. The quality that you have and the fact that it's so specific for that area with the content, it must be unique, I would have thought, in the areas.
I think our particular model is unique. There are other models and other players, of course, right across the UK. I mean, there's quite a large number of what I would call micro publishers around the UK, and everyone does it slightly differently. So some will decide that they'll produce a magazine and they won't put it through people's letterboxes. They'll just make it available in supermarkets to be picked up or in cafes to be picked up. And for me, that's not a very strong delivery strategy. That's a little bit reliant on, first of all, someone wanting to pick it up and then somebody actually taking it up and reading it. My model is more of a numbers game. I will put it through 51,000 letterboxes. And the reason why I do that is I want it to be as widely read as I possibly can, but also from a commerce point of view, our main income is from advertising. So the 40% of the magazine that isn't editorial is advertising space, and so it's vitally important that my advertisers get a response. And if I put 10,000 copies out through people's letterboxes, I'm absolutely delivering their messages directly into people's homes. And that means that gives us a greater chance of their advert being seen and being responded to. If I were to take that 10,000 and spread it around supermarkets or whatever, or cafe bars, first of all, I wouldn't need 10,000. I'd probably do it with 4,000 copies. And you're limiting the amount of people who are seeing it, and it's not a direct delivery. So I don't like that. Other micro publishers fill their magazines full of ads. They don't have any editorial. They don't like me believe in content. I've always been taught that content is king. That's why we work so hard on the content, and that's why my advertisers tell me that they get a response, because people are reading the great story on Mr. Jones around the corner, who in his 20s climbed Everest and is now a retired postman or whatever. People are reading that story about their near neighbor. And while they're reading that story, they're exposing themselves to the advertising messages that are in the magazine. So like advertising is very subliminal anyway, isn't it, really? So it's that's it. So there are different ways of doing it. So I think when you say it must differentiate us from other people, it does, because there are other players who don't value the content and do the editorial. We do, and we think that gives a greater response. And also, from a publishing point of view, I wouldn't want to wake up in the morning and think that I was producing a magazine that was just, lining the budgie cage 2 days later. I want to feel that we, the team and I, have produced something that we love. We've spent a lot of hours and time and passion and sweat and tears putting together. We then get it printed and can feel it, and it's lovely to turn the pages, and it's a nice size. It's not too small, it's not too big. It's in that sort of Goldilocks zone. And, we just have great articles. I mean, this is an article here from a chap that lives in one of our areas, who's Bernard the Bard, and he writes fantastic poetry. It's nice content.
That's great.
So I think
that's a great benefit.
We've been at it since 2011. So we're still here. We've grown every year in terms of the size of our company, the turnover. And so it clearly is working. When people say to you that print is dead, I think maybe certain types of print maybe are failing. But actually, we're still a nation of readers. We like to read. We like to spend time with a cup of tea and flicking through something and feeling it. And we could talk for hours about this versus digital, which we probably haven't got. But people in this country still there's still a market for print, and we love being in it. We do digital publishing for clients. We do websites for clients. We do that stuff as well. But this is where our passion is, because it's the content, really. It's the editorial content that we think differentiates us, I think.
Yeah, that makes real sense. And it's great and such a benefit for the actual advertiser that they know it's physically going into someone's house. So it's not it might be seen by somebody. It is in some format going to be seen by many thousands of people.
Yes,
So
and that's it. Yeah, that's the secret to our success is exactly that. It's getting it through those letterboxes, targeted into an area. And then, once you've targeted into someone's house, you make it look and feel beautiful. You make it feel that you wouldn't want to just throw it away and dispose of it. I'm sure some people will and some people do, but I think that's a very small percentage. We use our front covers very carefully with the cover lines. We put cover lines on that we know, because of the letterbox has come through for the area it's gone into, that these are going to go, oh, actually, I'll read that. The image, front cover image is vital to make you think, oh, what's this come through my letterbox? Oh, I'll keep that for later.
So tell me a little bit more, Tim, about your actual business journey with links over the last, 13 years now?
Yeah, well, as I say, my background is in newspapers and magazines, so I have spent all my career in corporates, really, for various parts of the country, working in commercial departments within magazines and newspapers. So when I left my last corporate newspaper, etc., I had always wanted to create something like this for myself and for my team. And I met a lovely lady locally who had already launched a couple of the magazines. They were small, they were quarterly. They needed just a bit of commercial boosting, really. Content was great. The format was great. The idea was great. Everything that I would want to do myself, this lady was already doing. Lizzie was my business partner for 5 years. And we worked together really well because she took on that editorial role. I took on the commercial role. And together we built the business up. Sadly, Lizzie wanted to retire is not the right word, but wanted to sell her share back in 2018. So I've been flying solo since then. But yeah, that's the journey, really. It's a great learning curve, particularly. I mean, I think if you're in your 20s and your 30s and you set up your own business, you're in it and you've done it. For someone like myself, I worked for corporates for 35 years, and there are certain elements of running a corporate business that you don't get involved with. You're just a person that runs that department or that company or that bit of the machine. So it is a learning curve. There's no two ways about it. I mean, you think you know everything until you start running your own business, and then you kind of think, well, and even some of the things you learn over the years, you forget until someone like you, Mark, comes along. You have a chat with someone like myself, and you suddenly go, God, yeah, I remember. God, bloody hell, I remember talking about those kind of things 20 years ago. Why have I forgotten that? The little gems and that. So yeah, running the business myself, my journey has been really interesting and terribly enjoyable. Terribly enjoyable.
Yeah, I can see I can see your passion for it, and I think that's reflected as well in the quality of the magazines, isn't it? So it's something that you can't be half-hearted with. You've got to go all in, and you've clearly built the team and built the magazines up from when you first started. So what does the future hold with the Links magazines, Tim?
Well, I'm of an age now where I could easily just sit back and go, oh, well, whatever, that's enough. And I kind of thought that about 2 years ago, but then we had 4 magazines 2 years ago. Now we've got 6 magazines. Do I want to launch more products? I'm not sure, really. If the right area, if the right circumstances and area became available, I think I would launch more magazines. There's merit in that. But also, I don't want to spread ourselves too thinly. We cover the West Devon, Dartmoor, and Plymouth area of Devon. No particular ambition to spread across into Cornwall or to head off towards East Devon or North Devon. And indeed, you know, Devon's a big county. Those are areas I don't know and I don't understand. I know and I understand West Devon and Dartmoor and Plymouth. I've lived and worked here now for 24, 25 years. It's an area that I know. And I think there's something to be said for when you're publishing something, for you to know your area. If you spread yourself too thinly, and I have done this in the past, where I've found myself managing magazines from, you know, 4 counties away, you know, Wiltshire or Gloucestershire or Dorset or even further afield than that. And actually it becomes difficult then. It becomes management by the numbers rather than being passionate about an area and understanding it. So I think, you know, there's room for expansion. I've mentioned digital already. We do a lot of digital work, but, you know, primarily we're in print. I think as the years tick by, we will find ourselves doing much more in terms of digital offering, whether that be, as I say, website designs, content, social media marketing, management, you know, for our clients. We've had lots of interest in that. We don't do it, but a lot of interest from our clients asking us, would we do it? So I think there's room to expand that way. There are other parts of our publishing empire that we want to refine, perhaps reduce some of the costs and offer new print services, leaflets being one of them, etc. Not so easy for us to do at the moment, but that's something where we would look at in the future. And then I think, yeah, so I think when I retire, I'd be very happy if I had a very happy medium between print and digital, really. I think
that makes sense.
The way to go, really. Yeah.
You got a long time before you retire, Tim. You'll still be part of that Tavistock community for a long time still. Obviously you've moved from, as you say, a very successful corporate career and then moved into being an entrepreneur and a business owner. Along that bit of the journey, what do you think your biggest learnings have been?
I think keep an eye on the numbers. Always have your eye on the numbers. I think if you can find a good accountant who's progressive and forward-thinking, that can be worth its weight in gold. But I think as a business owner, you just have to have a handle on the numbers and be. I'm not obsessive about it, but I mean, you know me a little bit, Mark, and you know I do have a fairly good handle on my numbers. And I think that's, for anyone going into business, I think that's really quite key. I mean, clearly you've got to have a great idea, one that you're passionate about, and one that you've researched sufficiently to know that there is an interest in your product or service. But once you're in it, I think just keep an eye on those numbers. Don't let those costs slip away from you. I mean, the last few years, COVID and the cost of living crisis has been very difficult to manage those numbers, but it would have been very easy to let those numbers run away with themselves and be out of control. So you've got to control those costs. I think that's probably the main thing. A good accountant, but progressively forward-thinking one, not one that's just looking in the rearview mirror all the time and telling you what you can't do. And then build a team. We could have 40 minutes on my team. Whether it be Jane, who's been with me 10 years, Joanne, 6 years, Tracy, one of our sales ladies, been with us just under, it was about 11 months, but just fitted in brilliantly. I've got Rosemary, who's one of our editors. She's been with us almost, I think, from the start as a writer, and it's been an editor for many, many years now of two of our magazines. We've got Emma, who's an ex-Fleet Street hack, who is just so experienced. It's untrue. She edits one of our rural magazines, Oaky Links. She's absolutely brilliant. Julian and Rachel, these are production people. These are designers, and Julian is a designer, and Rachel are production people. I worked with them in my last corporate job, and I worked with them for about 9 years, I think, or 8 to 9 years. And they've been with us now on a freelance capacity Julian for 10 years, I think. And Rachel off and on for about 4 years. So just blessed with, I could disappear tomorrow and this company would still run. It would still run and exist quite happily without me. And that's because those people are just great. I've got a great bookkeeper, Tracy, as well. and I think that's important. Bring people on that you want to work with, you want to be with, and who are bright. I think some great person said once, always bring on people who are brighter and more talented than you. And I think that's absolutely bloody right, because that works every time. Yeah, they're just great. A great team. Keep an eye on the numbers and build a really, really good team around you.
Sage advice, Tim. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Keeping an eye on the figures, building a great team.
Possibly also consult once a week for an hour with someone from Action Coach.
You're too kind.
Well, can I say that is an important element, because one of the things you'll find if you're running a business on your own, and I have been since 2018. Prior to that, I had Lizzie. We bounced off each other. We shared decisions. We debated decisions, and that was great. And since then, suddenly who's making the decisions? Well, it's just me. And you sit in a dark room and you think, oh, well, shall we do this? Shan't we do this? And who am I talking to? And I can talk to my colleagues, of course, but sometimes you don't always want to overshare with them. There are people out in the community that I just want to run something by you, but they don't really know. They're just listening to me and going, well, that sounds like a great idea to me, Tim. Why don't you do it? But to actually have someone like you who listens and has, you have your own background in business, etc., plus all the tools that are available to you via Action Coach. It is important for me to have an hour with somebody to go, look, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you reckon? And have a proper business debate and conversation about it. That is worth its weight in gold. It really is. A bit like the accountant, really.
It's a lonely place sometimes when you run a business, because the buck stops with you, and the buck stops with you when it comes to everybody that you employ. So your responsibility is levels are high. It's on your shoulders, and I know that you're doing more than well with all those things, Tim. So who or what inspires Tim Randall? That's a tough old question sometimes, isn't it?
I don't know. I'm not a great reader of business gurus and things like that. So I couldn't say, I'm not going to do the usual sort of what's his socks? I don't know really. I mean, I think what inspires me is the quality of the product. I think, as I said earlier on, when you get up in the morning and you're going to work with a team like this, and you're going to produce a quality product that people love. And our inbox and postal boxes from the editors and my own are just, and when I go out into the community and I do stuff with the Chamber of Commerce, etc., in the community, and that, the feedback we get for our product is just fantastic. People think it's a superior tone. It's a lovely read. And so that feedback inspires me. I wouldn't do it if I thought I was producing something substandard. I wouldn't bother. I couldn't be asked. So I don't think there's any one person. I'm not going to say, oh, Richard Branson. I don't think there's only one person that inspires me really. I get inspired by the community. I think the community inspires me. I meet people all the time, and I ring the editor up or the editors. I ring up and say, look, I've just bumped into this person here in the street or at an event I've been at. They're just so interesting. Let's do a story on, let's do an interview with them. And so I just think in everybody's community, there are just fantastic people, whether they're people doing good or people who have done interesting things or have got certain knowledge that you just didn't know existed. You stumble across these things. It's very easy to look at a community, look down the high street or look down the roads and think there's not much going on there, is there? But you dig in and you dig deep and you go, oh, actually, you don't have to go down that deep. You just find out wonderful things. So I don't know if that answers your question. I don't know if you're asking me to name a person that inspires me, but I think it's just...
I think that's a perfect answer. I think, from what I know myself, you as a person and the magazines are part of the community as well, which is it's really important, and that shines through the final product that comes through someone's door. And I think that all together creates such a high quality product.
Yeah, I think you're right, Mark. But one of the other things and I've touched upon advertising, but clearly we live and die by advertising.
Yeah.
But the great thing about it, having been publishing for 14 years, is that some of my clients have been with us since the start. They've never missed an issue. They've been with us for 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years. I've got clients that have been with me 6, 8 years. They do that for a reason, because they get a response. They're not going to give me their money because, they like me. They might like me, but they're doing it because they get a response. Now, I regularly go and talk to my clients, and I was with one doing a review of their advertising spend with us last week, a fairly large client. And, you walk in there and the first thing they say to you is, just Tim, we get business now from areas we never got business before until you launched a magazine there. Or we never got much business from Plymouth, but since you launched those 3 magazines in Plymouth and we've been going in there, we're now inundated with work from Plymouth and that. So they can see in their tills or on their accounts that it works for them, and they get a return on the investment. So that's brilliant too. That's very inspiring for the team and I, that we get that kind of testimonial feedback from our paying advertisers. They're the people that pay the lighting bill and pay our salaries and pay the print bill. They're the people who advertise in here, and it's great. Really, it's great. It's fab. Great feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think you'd be flourishing after 11 years if that wasn't the case. So, there's the reason that you're going from strength to strength is because, it's working for the advertiser. Before we wrap up, Tim, is there any sort of news or offers that you'd like to let us know about regarding what's going on in the world of links?
Well, it depends who your audience is, I guess. But I mean, if you'd like to advertise in Links magazines, then please give myself or the team a ring. I don't think so, really. We do what we do. We've just launched 2 new magazines in the last year, so that's been really exciting for us. And those magazines are now bedding in, which is lovely. If you ask me again in 2 years' time, I might say I've launched another 3 magazines. I don't know, no plans to, but I might have done. That would be interesting. No, not really. I think I'm exercised at the moment with some of our distribution methodology. I'm reworking the way we get through people's letterboxes and looking at that more closely. We're looking at that. That in itself might bring on some new revenue streams for us, which remained untapped for us. And then, of course, I do get excited about digital, and I would really love to add a real proper digital expert into the team to help us realize some of our digital plans. So I am looking to recruit that position in the next 6 months. I'd like to be thinking that we could get someone on board who could help us with that. But no, nothing really true. We have some offers on at the moment.
Well, I'm sure people will get in touch with the team and they'll know all about that. Tim, thank you so much for your time today, chap. And it's a really interesting journey, and where you've started and to where you are now, and you're going from strength to strength. So hats off to you, chap. It's great to see, particularly in our local community, when we see companies like yourself working with the community and doing some great things and creating a really good business. So thank you, Tim, and I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of your journey, chap.
Yeah, nice to see you. Cheers.
Take care of yourself.